Thank you very much for pressing play. Of course, you know me. I'm a man called Dave, and this is brought to you by the Knights of Worship. Scotty B, thank you very much. Also brought to you by Wilson's Market. So let me see here real quick. I've got some people trying to contact me. We'll just figure it out. Also, Kangen Water 9.5, hydrate my brain. This flag, the civilian flag of peace, this sign, the measure of who you are is what you do with what you have. And all we have sometimes is ourselves, maybe some loved ones, some friends, some family, which is why I keep coming on making these videos. I'm going to keep coming on making these videos because we've got a meeting scheduled this next Saturday. Today's Monday. I had to look up there because honestly, I never know. And on Saturday, the 13th, we're meeting in Coos Bay, Oregon at the Board Walk down there on 101. Off to the right-hand side is the Coos Bay Board Walk. Beautiful meeting area. I was just down there today. There wasn't a lot of foot traffic. It was Monday. So, of course, the eclipse, everybody's freaking out. If you notice, still here. Okay. But also, this is a time of reflection. This is a time there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on, a lot of fear, a lot of propaganda. Nobody really knows what's happening except for we have to just go inward, reconnect with our higher power, whatever that might be for you. For me, I say it's my author. My author has authority over me, my creator. I am created in his image. Also, I'm a co-creator. I'm a living spirit inside of a man called Dave. I'm a citizen of heaven and a resident of earth, and I'm here only temporarily to do business, and this is the business. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Before I do that, I do want to show you a couple things. This little book that I've been showing everybody, it's a citizen's rule book, and it's the Bill of Rights and the Jury Handbook. I do want to read a little passage. So it says, "Give me liberty or give me death" by Patrick Henry. Okay, a young Christian attorney, Patrick Henry, saw why the jury of peers is so vital to freedom. A jury of peers. We don't have that anymore. We have a selected jury from the voter registration. And this is going to explain a little bit about what the original intention was behind the jury of peers. Okay, it says in 1775, March, when he rode into a small town in Culpeper, Virginia, he was totally shocked by what he saw. There in the middle of the town square was a minister tied to a whipping post, his back laid bare and bloody, with the bones of his ribs showing. He had been scourged mercilessly like Jesus with whips laced with metal. Now, this is in 1775 in Culpeper, Virginia. Patrick Henry is quoted saying, "When they stopped beating him, I could see the bones of his rib cage. I turned to someone and asked what the man had done to deserve such a beating as this." Okay, it says scourged for not taking a license. The reply given to him was the man being scourged was a minister who refused to take a license. He was one of 12 who were locked in jail because they refused to take a license. A license often becomes an arbitrary control by government that makes a crime out of what ordinarily would not be a crime. It turns a right into a privilege. 3 days later, they scourged him to death. This was the incident which sparked Christian attorney Patrick Henry to write the famous words which later became the rally cry of the revolution, which is that gentleman wish? Which is that gentleman wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God, and know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Later, he made this part of his famous speech at St. John's Episcopal Church in Richmond, Virginia. Okay, next page, it says jury of peers. Our forefathers felt that in order to have justice, it is obvious that a jury of peers must be people who actually know the defendant. How else would they be able to judge motive and intent? Peers of the defendant, like the rights of the jury, have also been severely tarnished. Originally, it meant people of equals in station and rank, which is Black's Law 1910. freeholders of a neighborhood, Bouvier's 1868-6, or a companion, a fellow, or an associate, which is Webster's definition in 1828. Who has a right to sit on a jury? Patrick Henry, along with others, was deeply concerned as to who has the right to sit on a jury. Listen to our forefathers' wisdom on the subject of peers. And this goes on, you know, it's a short little, tiny little book, but also I guarantee most people have never, ever even read it. And I'm most people, you know, and I've got my hands on, this is my only copy. But going through this little tiny book, it might as well be as big as an encyclopedia with as much information as packed inside of this thing. And most of us have no idea. And that's what's sad, is we don't know. We haven't been holding our position as private American citizens of the Republic. Okay, that's the land and the soil called Oregon. It's a nation state. And I don't want to confuse this with a state national, because that's a fraud. They use this flag to create trickery. Yeah, thumbs up. To create trickery and deception and deceit against we the people. And our ignorance keeps us in a state of not knowing. So how can we not know? How can we defend ourselves or stand and obtain our standing, our proper standing, if we don't even know where we're at? We don't even know who we are. And this is going to help us figure it out. But also we have to do our due diligence. Like this man, Derek Johnson, the Midnight Rider, talks about Paul Revere. He has a wonderful article in here that he wrote about the history of Paul Revere and how he thinks he might have some type of spiritual connection to the man called Paul Revere. And coincidences are a thing of the past, because nothing happens for no reason. And this man knows that there's a divine connection between us, each one of us, even between him and Paul Revere. So who is Derek Johnson, the author of this book, The Midnight Rider, Rides Again? Okay, Derek Johnson has a chapter 3. So who the heck is Derek Johnson? And he goes into how he's not a plant, not a bot, not undercover. He's not rich. He's not a grifter. He's not a fraud. He's not a paid spokesperson. So he's direct, he's straightforward, he's a no bullcrap kind of guy. He's a retired United States Army veteran, simply keeping the oath he proudly raised his right hand and swore to protect. He loves the United States of America and everything she stands for, from the origins of her foundation passed down by his ancestors who've been here since the beginning. Okay, that's Genesis, the beginning. Genesis is the origin of something. Kongen is a Japanese word that means return to origins. Okay, and that's my whole goal, is to return us back to a constitutional republic. I'm going to do my part. This is me doing my part right now. There's a lot right here he talks about, but he is a retired United States Army veteran. And right here he says he did not get to serve as long as he wanted, but God had other plans. Had he still been in the military, due to the oath, national security, and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the Department of Defense regulation, and Army regulations, he would not have been able to say what he said and do what he's doing. We try to define our lives too much by titles, ranks, positions, accolades, and achievements, with the results of those coming on material things versus how we treat one another and being good humans at the end of the day. Someday I'll expand on who I am. That's what he says. Someday he'll expand on who he is in depth. But for the integrity of this book and for what it's intended is for you to see what happened right in front of your eyes and to lead a rally of patriots in this nation, helping others appreciate their freedoms, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, and how those were established and how we maintain those versus getting on the brink of losing everything we have. Now, when I say losing everything we have, I mean, if you look around, we've got a lot of things. However, what about our ability to think freely, our ability to express our free will, our ability to walk upon the earth unmolested? Okay, this is not a fact of life right now. I can guarantee, I can prove it. Okay, we do not have the types of freedom that we think we have. Our ancestors, the forefathers, anybody in our past would be very upset with the level of complacency that we have instilled or installed into our community right now. We are a complacent people, and it needs to stop. Okay, you have to be self-governing. Okay, now that enough of this, I'm going to share my screen. And this right here is a really great opportunity for us to see the differences. Okay, right here, live birth record. It's a title, created by life, a baby born or endowed versus the birth certificate. So there's a difference between the live birth record, otherwise known as an abstract of birth, versus the birth certificate. And if you do have a birth certificate, get it out and compare it to your Federal Reserve notes, your fiat currency. Notice that the border around the birth certificate is very similar to the border around your money, your dollar bills, and the types of design, the type of paper. It's on bonded paper. It has those little microfibers to prove that it's not counterfeit, same like the money does. And also it's a bond. My bond was issued by the Bank of California. I forget which branch. But of course, now I say that I'm a native of the Republic of California and I domicile in the Republic of Oregon. These are separate individual nation states. And this information that I have up on my screen right now outlines your unalienable rights, which means that you cannot put a lien on these rights. No corporation can put a lien on what God gave you as an inheritance in your birth. And that's why the live abstract birth record, the lawful name, the beneficiary, the sovereign public trust, all of these things are very important because it comes from God. It comes from the Creator. And if we are an extension of the Creator, it says that we were made in the Creator's image. So if we were made in the Creator's image, it's like a photocopy of an original, and it still has the same information, except for it's just not the original. And same like us, except for we have unalienable rights, the right to life, freedom, health, and the pursuit of happiness. And I can go through these and we can read them and go through them, but really that's something that you should be doing on your own. I'm not going to hold your hand and walk you through every single step of this, except for if you have to, I will. I tell people all the time, I'll go 60 if you come 40, right? That's a percentage. I'll go a little bit more than you if you need me to. I will go 70 if some people need to go 30. However, it pretty much stops there. There are certain people in my life that I'll go 80 if you go 20. Very, 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 very few people. I'll go 90 if you go 10. But also, I'm not going to go 90 forever. We're going to have to eventually increase your capabilities and your input, the work that you're doing, your inner work, the inner child work, the healing of the old emotional wounds. We all have different types of things. Like, for example, this bondage. We've all been trafficked. Literally, we are engaged in human trafficking and we're unwilling participants. I withdraw my consent. I don't agree to being trafficked by a bankrupt, de facto fraudulent corporation. This is tyranny in the highest regard. It's as if Subway decided to take over as government in our local town, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. There's movies that have been made about this. And for example, it just happened, 150, 200 years ago, and now here we are at the end of it. And they say that the end of one thing is the beginning of something else. So you could also say that we're in the beginning of this new constitutional republic where we're going back to the future. And I know this in my heart because I've been fighting against unlawful commands my entire life. I was raised by an abusive, alcoholic man who was insecure in his ways, and his darkness was threatened by my light. So his solution to that was to put out the light. And he made me feel small so he could feel strong. And in school, the teachers, a lot of them did the same thing. My baseball coaches, some of them were very inadequate, insecure men who, were only coaching baseball so they could, be an authority figure over vulnerable kids. And I can still remember those faces of those men who mistreated us as young baseball, athletes. And this is just common with our society in America right now. We've got, grown men and women who have emotionally stunted growth, developmentally stunted in their traumas. So we have, 12-year-olds who never really grew up, never developed the skills to be self-governing, never developed the skills to regulate their own nervous system, their own emotions, their eating habits, their thoughts. If we can't control our thoughts, then we're not going to control our words. And if we're not going to control our words, how can we obtain jurisdiction? When juris means the rule of and diction means words. So if we're going to obtain jurisdiction, we have to control the rules of words, which means you have to know what you mean and mean what you say, but also feel. You have to feel it. You have to know it in your core. And if you're just going to repeat or regurgitate some stuff that you heard on the internet, it's not going to work. That's not sovereignty. Okay, sovereignty is what we're ultimately seeking here. We're escaping from bondage, and the birth certificate system and your all caps name is de facto. It's separated from facts. So what we're moving towards is a more truth-based system. It's a we the people, of the people, for the people. And that's the body sovereign. We make up the body sovereign, and the body sovereign controls the body politic. So you have the right to practice a religion. I'm not religious myself, but I am spiritual. I say I'm a living spirit inside of a man called Dave. I'm a citizen of heaven and a resident of earth. I'm sojourning here temporarily to do business. So I have the right to live in peace and be left alone when law abiding. And the law says do no harm. It says that to do no harm to any living creature. And that means to create no injury, create no damage, create no tort. That means property damage. It means my rights are my property given to me by God, so I'm not to damage another person or another man or woman's property. And also, if there's a claim of trespass or property damage, I'd be happy to answer your questions. I'd be happy to cooperate. If there is an injured party, I will do my best to provide remedy. However, if there's no injured party, if there's no trespass or property damage, then there is no crime. And if there's no contract, then there is no duties to perform or obligations to comply. And that's always my standing. That's that's my attempt to obtain jurisdiction, my standing. Okay, I know who I am, I know where I am, and I know where we're going. Where we're going is body sovereign. So I'd like for you to join me and my friends on Saturday. That's going to be April 13th at Coos Bay, Oregon. You'll see me waving this flag. I also have a sign that says Stop Human Trafficking. And my goal is to infiltrate myself, go internal, so I can know who I am, know where I stand, educate myself, unlearn, learn, and relearn. That's why I have these books. Okay, I'm learning, I'm unlearning, I'm relearning, and I invite you to join me. Okay, we are the ones who are going to help out the people who don't know. And they say belief is the enemy of knowing. So once you know, you can't unknow, you can only ignore, and that's ignorance. You don't want to live in ignorance. I love you. You take care. I'm glad you survived today. It's a beautiful day. The weather was amazing, and I hope you got some sun. So I love you. Take care. Have a good night.